Helena, I like your background.
Thank you. We should be live now on Facebook.
We're live. All right. Thank you, Jalissa. Let me say good evening to everyone and welcome to our second Social Justice, Race and Equity Commission meeting. Today is January 21st, 2021. I'm having to practice 2021 and not repeat 2020. And the meeting of the Social Justice and Race Commission meeting is now hereby called to order. I am John J. Funny, and I'll be presiding this evening. The Social Justice, Race and Equity Commission public meeting has been called on matters pursuant to the Mayor and Council approved resolution 2020-09-01 to establish the Social Justice, Race and Equity Commission, and as specified on tonight's agenda. As a way of introduction, I will call the roll in alphabetical order and have each commission acknowledge their presence, and that will provide us with the appropriate number of attendees to have a quorum. And I think we do from looking at all of the faces here. Commissioner Alexander.
Present.
Commissioner Alvarez.
Present.
Commissioner Anwar.
Present.
Commissioner Arif. Commissioner Arif. Commissioner Barrera. Commissioner Barrera. Commissioner Becerra. Commissioner Becerra. Commissioner Bowden.
Present.
Commissioner Burnett.
Present.
Commissioner Kane. Commissioner Kane.
Present.
Commissioner Curiello, excuse me. Thank you. Commissioner Collins.
Present.
Commissioner Cortez.
Present.
Commissioner Corn.
Present.
Commissioner Cruz. Commissioner Cruz. Commissioner Funny, present. Commissioner Hardy.
Present.
Commissioner Hershin.
Present.
Commissioner Henson.
Present.
Commissioner Knight.
Present.
Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Moses.
Minor is here. I could not get off mute. I apologized.
Not a problem. I hate that mute button too. All right. Commissioner Moses.
Here.
Commissioner Murthy Wall.
Present.
Commissioner Naglish.
Naglish, present.
Can you pronounce that for me? Naglish? Is it Naglish?
Naglish.
Naglish. Thank you, Commissioner Naglish.
Naglish.
Naglish. Thank you. Commissioner Nelson.
Here, present.
Thank you. Commissioner Naise.
Nisi here.
Nisi. Thank you. Commissioner Owen.
Present.
Commissioner Petzold.
Present.
Commissioner Palmer.
I'm present.
Thank you. Commissioner Pasco.
Present.
Commissioner Russell.
Present.
Commissioner Thomas.
Present.
Commissioner Todd. Commissioner Todd. Commissioner Torres.
Present.
Commissioner Wells.
Here.
Commissioner Wendell. Commissioner Wendell. Commissioner Woodward.
I'm here.
And Commissioner Wright Hudson.
I'm here.
Thank you all for noticing your presence. We do appreciate you being here. And we have a quorum because we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 missing. So we do have a quorum to proceed with our meeting this evening. So that we may limit the amount of interruption, I ask that you please mute your devices when you're not speaking, and that you turned off your mic, silence your cell phone as well, please. The agenda has been forwarded to each of you via email and is also made public on the city's website. If you wish to make any comment during the public portion of the meeting, you may do so by 4 methods, and this is more or less for the public who may be attending this evening. You may email us at sjrec@brookhavenga.gov, or you can visit the city's Social Justice, Race, and Equity Commission website and submit a comment, or you can write your comment in the Zoom section, in the Zoom chat section, or you can raise your hand in the Zoom as appropriate and at the appropriate time and request to speak during the public comment section. Before you have the agenda that's been provided. I will entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented.
So move.
Okay. Can we get a second? Can you state your name for the record, please?
Commissioner Knight.
Thank you, Commissioner Knight. And can we get a second on the approval of the agenda?
Jim Moses, I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Moses. We have a motion and a second. Is there any unreadiness or any debate or discussion on the agenda as presented? Any debate or discussion on the agenda? Any debate or discussion on the agenda? So that means everybody loved the agenda. All right, all those in favor of the agenda, you would state aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, please state nay and state your name. Very good. We have a unanimous approval of the agenda, and we will continue with our agenda for this evening. Next on the agenda is the approval of the December 17th, 2020 meeting minutes. Did everyone get a copy of the meeting minutes? Jalissa, that was emailed out, right, Jalissa? Jalissa, you're on mute?
I'm unmuted there. It was on the website, but next time I'll make sure to email it to everybody too.
It's on the website. Okay. All right. So yeah, let's just make sure that we blast it out via email so that they can have that. Can we get a motion on the approval of the meeting minutes that was presented to some of you, not to some of you, I'm sorry, that was shared with you via the website?
Commissioner Moses, I move that the minutes be approved.
Commissioner Arif, I motion for second.
Thank you, Commissioner Moses and Arif. We have a motion and a second. And let me just say, if you received my email where I summed up the meeting, that was really the meeting minutes. She just expanded upon it and she cleaned it up and made it look pretty. but I did follow up with an email after the meeting and provided everyone with some footnotes so that you would be on tap with what was discussed at the meeting. And those of you who weren't at the meeting, I hope that was very helpful for you to be on board with the discussions that was had at the first meeting. All right, we have a motion and a second on the approval of the meeting minutes. All those in favor state aye.
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 All those who oppose state nay and state your name for the record. Hearing none, that means our meeting minutes has been passed unanimously. Thank you very much for bearing with me as we get through that piece of business. Next on the agenda is our moment of inspiration, and Mindy Cow is going to actually provide us with our moment of inspiration this week. Mindy?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? For whatever reason, I can't see myself.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hear and see you.
It's probably better that I can't watch myself doing this. So, Jalissa, go ahead and switch to the next slide. So to kick off today's meeting, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. For those of you who've never experienced a land acknowledgement before, just know that it's a recognition of the Indigenous history of the land that we inhabit. In order to do the work of social justice and equity for a better future, we must acknowledge our history and understand that the privileges of the land that we inhabit came at a grave cost for Native peoples. Today's land acknowledgement is not about guilt, though, but about awareness and honor. What you're looking at right now is an online resource called Native Land, and it shows the homelands of Indigenous tribes across the world. So you can flip to the next slide. I used this tool to research where we are and found that we are on, if you're in Brookhaven, we are on the traditional territories of the Cherokee and Muskogee nations, who for over 10,000 years inhabited and nurtured the land that is today known as Brookhaven. Next slide, please. In the early 1800s, both Cherokee and Muskogee nations were forcibly removed from their native lands in the Southeast as a result of violent colonialism enacted and enabled by the US government. Today, both nations' tribal headquarters are located in Indian Territory in present-day Oklahoma. Despite the deep trauma of their past, they continue to govern under Muskogee and Cherokee law. They practice their cultural ways and keep their language and traditions alive. So in honor of the First Nations that were the original keepers of this land, I want to share a poem by Joy Harjo. She's a member of Muskogee Nation, and she's also the first Native Poet Laureate of the United States. I hope her words fill you with strength and vision for the work ahead of us.
Eagle poem. To pray, you open your whole self to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know except in moments steadily growing. And in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle, that Sunday morning, over Salt River. Circled in blue sky and wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion. Like eagle rounding out the morning inside us, we pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty.
So, with hearts swept clean, let us take the utmost care and kindness as we embark on this journey.
Thank you, Mindy. That was awesome. And I think as we will carry the inspiration with us as we embark upon the journey, for there's a lot of work that has to be done, and we would need that inspiration along the way. So thank you for sharing that with us. Next, I will actually bring up Kristen Sigmund, our city manager for the city of Brookhaven, and he will introduce the Brookhaven staff liaison. Kristen?
Thank you, Chairman Funny. Good evening, everybody. Right now, we have 4 subcommittees that have been described in the previous meeting, though there may be future additional subcommittees in the future. The first subcommittee will look at the vision, mission, and city charter, and I'll be your staff liaison for that. The second subcommittee will be a review of the city's procurement processes. And if we're advancing the PowerPoint here, that would be Steve Chapman, who is on the call today. Steve is the Assistant City Manager and CFO for the city of Brookhaven. He has extensive experience in local government management that actually started here in Atlanta, and he has lots of experience in Florida. We are very fortunate as a city and this commission that Steve has extensive experience in procurement, actually running procurement operations in a government, something I have never done as a city manager, so we're blessed to have Steve on the team. Next, we'll have a subcommittee on the city's hiring practices. The staff liaison on that will be Alina Callis, and you advance the slide here. Very good. Alina, it's without the H, if you see the spelling there. Alina is an accomplished HR professional. For folks that are in that line of work, she has all those acronyms after her name that are necessary to be a proven leader and technically proficient in human resource management. And she will be your staff liaison for the review of the city's hiring and retention subcommittee. I do want to point out on the city's workforce in that we have approximately 160 full-time positions, but because we are a limited service city, over half of our full-time positions are actually police officers. In a full service city like City of Atlanta, it might only be 20% or 15% of the workforce are actually police officers. So a lot of our HR work is servicing the staffing and education and retention of police officers, which is somewhat unique given the commission that we have right now. And then the fourth subcommittee that exists at this time will be a review of the Brookhaven Police Department's continuum of force, the accountability and discipline thereafter. And representing the police department and your liaison, that will be Major Shamita Jones-Harold. She's been with the department for approximately 7 years now and was recently promoted to a major in the police department. Right now we have 3 majors in the police department, which is just 2 levels down from the chief. We have a chief, a deputy chief, and 3 majors. And Shamita is going to be a wonderful liaison for you to the police department on matters related to continuum of force. So those are your staff supports today, and obviously they'll bring in additional resources as necessary to do the work of the subcommittees. And if we have additional subcommittees, we'll bring in additional liaisons. So with that, Chairman Funny, I'll entertain any questions from the commission about the liaisons, but they're ready to get started once we have chairs and sub-chairs of the subcommittees.
Any question for our city manager, Kristen? Any question for Kristen? I think I did miss one element. Jalissa, can you put up the slide about the structure, please?
Mm-hmm.
I think
it would be this one.
go back. Let's see. The prior to that as well. Yes. Commission charge. That one. Thank you. Kristen just went over the different committees, which really parallels with the commission charge. Again, he mentioned the vision and mission, the hiring and retention, procurement, as well as the continuum of force of the Brookhaven Police Department. And we will actually develop recommendation and best practices to guide the police department policy, action, and accountability regarding continuum of force. And then we will have innovative policy statements across the different areas that we will be reviewing from the commission's perspective. So as we are working as commission, we're going to really get into the trenches, and I think that will happen in the subcommittee, but we really would need all of our commission members to be responsive to requests. So if we send something out, we really need you to follow through with responding. Every input from our commissioners are very important, and we want to make sure that we consider your input as we move forward. And I always use the analogy that we're all birthing a baby here. And once this baby is birthed, we're all going to have to raise this baby. So I really would like to have input from the commissioners as we go along with surveys or just some questionnaires that may come up. Next slide, Jalissa. Thank you. Here's the structure of the Social Justice, Race, and Equity Commission. Of course, at the top is the mayor and city council. They're our policymakers. And then off to the right of the mayor and city council is Kristen, our city manager, who does a great job with executing the initiative based upon policies that the mayor and council have approved, and the day-to-day operating of the city. That all comes under Kristen's hat. One step down is the actual Social Justice, Race, and Equity Commission. So that's us. That's us working as a body of volunteers to assist with the evolution of the results of what will come of this commission. And we are also going to establish an executive committee. The executive committee would include myself and the chair of each subcommittee. So that will be formulated in the coming weeks. So we ask that those of you who have expressed interest in serving on different committees, we ask that you answer the telephone when we call and ask that you serve as the chair. And that will be, again, be happening in the coming weeks. We'll be making assignment of subcommittee co-chairs. To the right of the commission, we have a team of experts, our consultants and their coordinating team. They will be working with us. They'll be also managing the research and communication component of this commission. We talk regularly, and I've gotten to know Leslie and Mindy and Kim and the others that are working with them very well. And it's a great working relationship, but they're helping us to structure and formulate what goes into the evolution of this commission and what results we're driving to. And under the commission, we'll have, again, 4 subcommittees as of date. If we identify something that comes up throughout the process, we may have another committee, but we do not know that as of yet. But right now, today, we will have 4 committees: Vision and Mission Subcommittee, Hiring Subcommittee, Contracting Subcommittee, Continuum of Force Subcommittee, and then Kristen introduced the staff liaison earlier. They're going to be providing us with a lot of data, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be answering a lot of questions with regards to the different departments that they're working with. So we're very pleased to have the staff liaisons working with this commission. Next slide. So more into the structure. So the commission, and I'm going to jump right into the purpose. The commission is to drive open and honest discussion on issues of social justice, race, and equity. That's the real purpose of this commission. So being silent doesn't help, but we must have, open, honest dialogue. So we are asking that you contribute to the discussion. The coordinating team, which includes the commission chair, the city manager, and the consultant, we work constantly to develop the design and guide to the process. And we spent a lot of time in other meetings prior to this meeting, several meetings, in working to design and guide the process. The executive team is, again, myself along with the subcommittee chair. That team will help to design and guide the process for the subcommittees. And when we select the subcommittee co-chairs, they will be heavily engaged with developing the structure, assisting with refining the structure so that it can be executed. So they will become a part of the team in helping to design the process. We already talked about the subcommittees, and the subcommittees is really to assess and recommend actions, policies, and procedures that advance social justice and equity. And that's pertaining to each of the areas that they will be working in. Then we have a really, really unique opportunity on the research and communication side. We have resources from ARC, we have resources from the Kettling Group, but they're going to be conducting community research and driving the creative narrative on this process, because there are a lot of data out there, and having exposure and relationship with the ARC and the Kettling Group, that's going to really provide us with a lot of data that's going to be meaningful, not only based on what's been done in other cities in Georgia, or it's across the world. So thank you, Ms. Lemmy, for being with us and providing that expertise. And I think that's my last slide, right, Jalissa?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. All right. So next I'm going to bring up Leslie Grady, and Leslie is going to talk to us about setting expectations. Leslie?
Thank you, Commissioner Funny. Good evening, everyone. Jalissa, can you bring me up? I think we might be to slide 19. So I am pleased to be here with you this evening and to join you in this discussion. You can take me next to, okay, there you go. So I wanted to reintroduce a few of us and introduce you to a new team member. You met Kim and Mindy and me in December. And as Chairman has mentioned, you also met Valerie Lemming from the Kettering Foundation, who is a wonderful national partner with us. So today we want to introduce Stephen Cosby, and I don't see him on my Hollywood Squares, but wave Stephen to folks. Stephen,
I'm here.
Hi, Stephen. He's worked with local governments for many years. He's currently an account exec with Civic Dinners, and up until 2020, he was manager of the Community Partnerships Group at the Atlanta Regional Commission. There he coordinated leadership programs, including LINK, the Regional Leadership Institute, and the Arts Leaders of Metro Atlanta. And he also led an ARC initiative that provided metro governments with resources and technical assistance to implement growth plans, as well as planning outreach efforts around racial equity. And so we welcome Stephen to the team. So if you can take me next, Jalissa, thank you. Over the next 10 months, the commission will do its work in an iterative learning process, including grounding in core principles and values and visioning for equity and social justice in Brookhaven, accessing quantitative and qualitative data for strategy development and perspective. We're going to take a big step on that today. And then gaining the critical insight, perspective, and desire of the community, as well as businesses in Brookhaven. And all of these will feed into the recommendation development for the mayor and city council. Can you take me next? So our sessions are going to always include a call to order, as well as a moment of inspiration. We'll have a content presentation and discussion. We'll have public input, and then we'll have our next steps, preparation for the next time. And during these sessions, we'll also use multiple approaches to the work, including presentations, panels, videos, reflective readings, breakouts, small group breakouts, more on that to come, polls, and as you heard earlier, sometimes music. And so we'll do all of that as a part of and leading up to each session meeting. So a little bit about the homework. The homework is meant to inspire and provoke you to frame upcoming discussion or possibly deepen dialogue from the prior session. We won't always discuss homework during the session, like tonight is an example, but we will help to make the connections. In fact, this is a good time to share that we encourage you strongly to connect with one another outside of these monthly sessions to share what you're thinking and learning about the materials. This is frankly the only way we're going to be able to build relationships with a group as large as us and on Zoom for 2 hours a month. And so we're thinking of some fun ways that we might do that, but it's really going to be up to you to make that step. Also during the sessions, we're going to try some exercises, and some are going to go so great, and some are going to go not as great, and we'll learn. So we ask for your patience with that. Leading into today's session, while we're still doing a little more talking to you than we prefer, it's just essential to kind of get us all on the same page. And I do promise you, you'll be informed and empowered from the learning. But over time, we will move more to you talking with one another and with community. We promise you that. Finally, Chrysalis Lab's role is to make sure these discussions allow for productive and respectful learning and engagement that prepares you to do your work. So we know that this does not mean that everyone every time will be able to speak in the large settings, as I'm sure you understand. That we hope will happen in the breakout groups. Because in these meetings, the way to establish those personal connections with one another, you'll be in groups of 9 or 10, will be that time to get to know your neighbors. When you hear something that's interesting or a different perspective or new, reach out. You have connections to one another, contact information. Those will be those opportunities to really get to know one another. But your voice matters. So if you ever feel you have something to say that's got to be said, it's burning, then please share it in the chat. Use the chat very liberally. Of course, take it directly to Chairman Funny or offline or any of us, because it very much matters. Our job is to keep an eye on time, knowing already that we will never have enough of it, but that's part of what we'll do. And so again, we'll mostly ask for your grace and forgiveness in advance as these coordinating parts. I don't know, I'm a big fan of The Wizard of Oz. And you know, when they pull back that curtain, you see the guy furiously working on the knobs and the wheels, and you see smoke coming up. That's what we're trying to do a little bit in the background of these Zoom meetings in this Zoom world. So it will happen, and we ask you to just remember that, bring that picture to your mind and work with us. And so I wanted to move on to a few ground rules that we're going to ask you to adopt for these sessions, but I invite you even now to contribute others that you might have via chat. And I'm going to ask my team members to keep an eye on those and to jump in once I go through the ones we have. So the first one is no one knows everything, but together we know a lot. This is really about being humble and kind of looking for what we get to learn from every other person in the room. So it asks us to share what we know as well as our questions so that others can learn from us. The next one is step up and step back. And I'm sure many of you have heard this one before. So if you're a person who tends to talk a lot, we're going to ask you to please we're going to ask you to step up back into a role of listening more. If you're a person who doesn't talk as much, we're going to ask you to step up into a role of speaking more. And just remembering that in both of those, that growth is happening. And then we can't be articulate all the time, and especially around tough topics, which this will get tough, right? So some people are hesitant often to speak because I'm going to say the wrong thing. It's not going to come out right. It's happened to all of us. We ask you to try to let that fear go of messing up your words, and just don't feel like you have to be perfect to say something. To be aware of time. Not only is this going to be helpful to move us through the sessions, but also just shows respect for everyone's time and commitment. So please come back from breaks, refrain from speaking long monologues as well. Embrace curiosity. We make better decisions when we approach our challenges with questions like what if, why? So allowing us that time and space for play and creative thinking. This next one's a biggie. acknowledging the difference between intent and impact, particularly when you're talking about issues that can be sensitive. So when someone does or says something that causes harm or that we find offensive, it's rarely their intention to do so. On the other hand, when we use those good intentions to deny or be accountable for the harm, then we cause more harm. So the opportunity in this ground rule is that we each do the work to acknowledge that our intent, but the impact of our actions are two different things, and to take responsibility for any negative that we can have. And this could be as simple as apologizing, saying my bad, but just acknowledging that piece. Show your face whenever possible, because it's just really hard to connect with an icon. And we already have so many things that in today's time are separating us between masks and computers, sound systems, and then yet icons. So please let us see your face, your expressions, your pets, your artwork, your fancy backgrounds, and maybe even a wonderful family member, as long as they're ready for prime time. Zoom meetings are where we are in this world, and we recognize that sometimes you're going to be off camera, but we ask you to minimize those. By the way, we won't have scheduled breaks in the large group sessions, but in all of the breakout sessions, if the group comes together and says, look, I need 2 minutes, I need some coffee, I've got something to do, each of you guys, we encourage you to do that. And then finally, a bike rack for topics for future discussions. And so this is just for all the stuff that's going to come up that is off topic but important, or that we just don't have time to talk about. And again, use the chat and please let us know. And so I'm going to finish up and let you get to hear from others, but I wanted to speak to a little bit about what we're embarking on as I bring up Mike Carnathan from ARC. So you'll recall in the first quarter of the year, the commission will be grounded in concepts of race and social equity and social justice, the qualitative and quantitative data specific to Brookhaven, and as well shared values that you all have amongst each other. And so we know this is all long-term work. We didn't get to this point overnight, and we won't solve it quickly either. And we'll need to work some things out. Here's an example, and you'll hear more about this later, but on your survey, you indicated a pretty large divergence on if this work can or should center on race to achieve social justice. So we recommend that you use this data and this time now, including community inputs, to make that decision. One way to consider it is presented in our homework article, the curb cut effect. And I am assuming that every one of you did your homework. I'm not even going to ask for a show of hands, and there's no pop quizzes, but it really is a great article. It's a good illustration of how laws and programs that are designed to benefit the most vulnerable groups, in that case, the disabled, ended up benefiting all. And proves in real life and logical terms that investments in the most disadvantaged groups cascade out and are a substantial investment in the broader well-being. And so today, as we listen to the data, let's keep in mind how this data should inform the work the commission has before it. In fact, that's the question you'll discuss during your breakout groups. So we've heard a little bit about Brookhaven history, and we'll hear more in the next sessions. Some of it will delight you, and some of it may give you pause, and that's okay. But now we're going to hear from Mike Carnathan, who'll bring us some of the facts. And then from Chairman Funny, who will share results of the survey you just completed. So Mike, if you could bring me up the slide, it's 25.
Mike, could you raise your...
I'm trying to share my screen, but it's not letting me.
Can you raise your Zoom hand? Oh, actually now I see you, so I can.
She said just Zoom hand. See, this is the world we're in. So we smile and we're gonna get you up there. 1 second, Mike, but I gotta tell them how great you are first. I've got 10 pages. I'm gonna condense it as hard as it is down to a paragraph.
All right.
But Mike is manager of the Research and Analytics Division of the Atlanta Regional Commission, ARC, and one of the founders of Neighborhood Nexus, a community intelligence system that's available for the whole region. This system and this data uses information as a catalyst to create opportunity. And Mike's vision is to do that and to tell us the story so that we can develop the narrative that works best for us. And so I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to Mike Carnathan.
All right, well, thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you for having me. And thank you for that introduction. I love it when people talk about how great I am. But what I'm going to do today is exactly what this slide says. And I do need to hear someone tell me, are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So yeah, we're going to be digging deep in Brookhaven. And I'm going to be showing you lots of maps and lots of charts and lots of data. And, you probably already know this stuff, either innately or inherently. There might be some aha moments, but that's not really the point of this. The point of this is to really kind of ground, this journey in data, and for us to really think about what social justice, issues of race and equity, what that really means for Brookhaven. And so, and I have something like 55 slides here, and I only have like 15 minutes to get through this. So I'm not going to touch on everything. And so that's actually kind of your homework. And I know I'm not authorized to assign homework, but you do have this slide deck. And I do encourage you after this to come back to this. And if you have any questions, email me. Leslie will get you my email address. But I'm going to go relatively quickly through this. And the first thing I'm going to focus on, and I'm actually going to spend a lot of time on this, is a survey that we did this year called Metro Atlanta Speaks. It's a massive, massive survey. We can look at the results by race, by income, by county. And really the reason I'm focusing on this is because one of the key learnings that we gleaned from this is just how much work we have to do to sort of bridge these perception gaps. People are having very different experiences in Metro Atlanta based on race and based on age. And this just, it doesn't speak to Brookhaven by itself, but it does speak to the overall body of work that we have to do to start, bridging these perception gaps. So let's just get to it. We always ask, what's the biggest problem facing the region? And here I'm showing you what the region's respondent said, and then what DeKalb respondent said. And it should come as no surprise that in the region, public health was the #1 issue. Typically, in other years that we've asked this, public health has been near the bottom. It makes total sense of why public health is the #1 issue this year. In DeKalb, however, crime is the #1 issue. And so that's just something to, to think about that, based on your age, based on your race. And by the way, those two are inextricably intertwined because younger age cohorts are majority persons of color, older age cohorts are majority white. So when I say race and age, there's some intermingling going on there. But also based on, where you live, that, we can't just use a blanket regional policy. We do have to understand these differences. And here's just a big spaghetti chart that's really just shows you how different 2020 is. In other words, here's that's public health, this green line. You'll see that it was sort of at the bottom of our concern list up until 2020, and now it's #1. That's no surprise. Race relations, this is this blue line. For the last 3 years, race relations has been at the very bottom of our concerns for the top problem in the region. That jumped up to #4. And so what this means is it means a couple of things. It means for our public health professionals, well, they have an opportunity right now. This is sort of their moment to reinforce the value of public health, but also for race relations. This is also an opportunity for us to really start having these hard conversations about this that we haven't been having in the past. And here I'm looking at just DeKalb County, and I'm breaking up the biggest problem by race. With, so you'll see again, Black residents in DeKalb County are more likely to say crime is the biggest problem, along with thing like a nebulous concept of human services. And we don't define it. We don't have enough time in this survey to define it. So we just say human services. And then public education. So Black residents in DeKalb County care more, relatively speaking, about crime, public education, and human services. White residents in DeKalb County care more about public health and transportation, relatively speaking. And then our Latinx residents, the number one concern for them in DeKalb County is this nebulous term of human services. Also the economy. So that just tells you that, while the economy pre-pandemic was going pretty strong, the economy is leaving people behind. And again, those experiences are going to be different based on your age and based on your race and ethnicity. Now, here's a couple of other questions asked directly about your financial situation. DeKalb County, we asked a question, how would you pay for a $400 emergency? Fully about 27 to 28% in both the region and DeKalb County couldn't pay for it without borrowing money or selling something. So that's 1 in 3 residents would struggle with that $400 emergency. And then you'll see it in DeKalb, how different that is by race. In other words, Black residents and Latinx residents are more likely to struggle to pay for that. And that's, again, just getting at this notion that there are different experiences of life in Metro Atlanta based on race. Perceptions of discrimination, and this really gets at the heart of what you guys are going to be talking about. We asked the question, how serious or how strongly do you agree with this statement? Discrimination against Black people in the US is a serious problem. In DeKalb County, 6 in 10 residents said they strongly agree with that statement. Another 30% somewhat agree with that, but we're going to focus on strongly agree. And so you'll see how different people in DeKalb County are thinking about discrimination against Black people. Now, same question, focusing on just DeKalb and disaggregating it by race, you'll see vast differences here. Look at the Latinx responses to this question. Only 28% strongly agree that discrimination against Black people is a serious problem. About half of the white respondents said so, and then 7 in 10 of the Black respondents said so. And that is beginning to kind of visualize for you kind of the gap that we have. And it's not just a matter of bridging, the white-Black perception gap. There's other races and other ethnicities too that we have to work on building those bridges as well. And Metro Atlanta Speaks really, really hit that home for us. I'm going to skip this question. Now, policing. So we asked a question, that's pretty simple. Which of the following best describes your opinion on how a police force should be utilized? We gave you we gave you 2 options. Should they respond to all calls, or should they leave nonviolent calls to other agencies? Now, this is oversimplifying, the whole concept of continuum of force that you guys are going to be talking about. But it is striking to see that in DeKalb County, a majority of respondents said that we should be thinking about leaving nonviolent calls to other agencies. Maybe we're overutilizing our police when we get those 911 calls. Now, and that's a different story than the region as a whole. Now, housing, I'm going to skip through housing insecurity. Now, when we talk about optimism for the future, one of the things that we always look at in this particular survey is kind of the hope quotient. Are we more optimistic of our future. And so it does, in other words, are things going to be better in 3 to 4 years, or are they going to be worse in 3 to 4 years? Now, all respondents, so regionally speaking, the majority of, more people said that it's going to be better than worse. And remember, we asked these questions during the summer of this year, so during the pandemic. And so, hopefully everyone was thinking that it was going to be better. And that's what we see in the region. However, in DeKalb, that hope quotient flips a little bit. In other words, a slight majority of people think it's going to be worse in 3 to 4 years. And so that's something that we always have to think about is, what is that kind of that optimism quotient in there? And so that's Metro Atlanta Speaks. We have lots of resources on our webpage about that. I encourage you during your homework and during your research to just Google Metro Atlanta Speaks, and it'll take you to our page where you can do all kinds of exploration about this survey. But it does speak, again, to this vast chasm of different experiences based on race and age. All right, now there's a whole bunch of maps that I'm going to fly through. I'm going to orient you on what you're looking at. Each of these maps have a color scale from purple to yellow, where purple represents the highest value of whatever that may be. Here's my hand-drawn sort of Brookhaven city boundaries. I know Christian's looking at this and is like, oh, that's a terrible hand-drawn, but it's relatively, depicts Brookhaven. And what you're going to look for is how Brookhaven compares to DeKalb County as a whole. And then the color schemes are actually based on the entire state. So that range means if you see a dark purple, that means it is the highest in the state. In other words, it's the highest quantile in the entire state. So that just gives you not only comparison to DeKalb, but to Georgia as a whole. So this is just distribution of total population. You see Northern Brookhaven has a little bit more of a population. You'll see how that population has changed. Brookhaven has been a fast growing place. You'll see distribution of diversity of where the white populations are distributed, where the Black populations are, where the Hispanic populations are, where the Asian populations are. And this one gets a little wonky since we're comparing it to the state. I had to use a different method for this. We can look at this by age, where the under 18 population is. And remember, this is a key point to remember, is that age and race are linked. Younger age cohorts are majority persons of color. Older age cohorts are majority white. So if you see a map of under 18, and you'll see high percentages, it's also likely that those are high percentages of persons of color as well. So there's the under 18 population, there's the over 65 population. And you'll just see, even within Brookhaven, you'll have vast differences north, south, and central based on the distribution of race and age. We can also look at distribution of education, percent with at least a bachelor's degree. Now remember, we're comparing this to Georgia as a whole. So really all of DeKalb has high concentrations of those with bachelor's degree, and that is particularly true in Brookhaven. Third grade reading proficiency. So this is the percent proficient or above. You'll see northern kids who live in northern Brookhaven have higher proficiency levels than those in southern Brookhaven. Median household income, same thing. We're comparing it to the state. Poverty rate, you'll see southern Brookhaven is more likely to have higher poverty rates than central and northern Brookhaven. Child asthma, so ER visits. This is one of these canary in a coal mine indicators where, if you see high visitation to the ER because of asthma, that means something else has gone wrong in that family situation. In other words, you can't pay for the medication, you don't have health insurance. And so you'll see Brookhaven has relatively high rates of ER visits for childhood asthma. and life expectancy. This is another one of those health things. Brookhaven, based on this indicator, is a relatively healthy place. You'll see a lot of purples there. All right, so that was very quickly through those maps. I encourage you to go back and take a look at it, because that's going to kind of ground Brookhaven in a broader context of DeKalb and Georgia. Now here's just the facts, and here's just a bunch of numbers, and I stole this straight out of the Brookhaven annual report. There's a bunch of numbers there. Don't worry about that. I think what's most telling about this is you have a bunch of numbers that are in English, and you have a bunch of numbers that's also in Spanish. And that in and of itself, that you have two languages in an annual report, tells you a lot about the type of place that Brookhaven is. And yes, if you look at the hard numbers, you'll see that Brookhaven is about 27% Hispanic, which is, you know, more than double the rate in Metro Atlanta as a whole. And so you'll see there's how the race and ethnicity compares. Here's how the age comparison compares. And what strikes me, what really stands out to me, is that in Brookhaven, you have significantly higher concentrations of those in that kind of those prime working ages, you know, from 25 to 45. It's going to be interesting what kind of place Brookhaven becomes as these people begin to age. But right now, it's a relatively young place compared to Metro Atlanta as a whole, which is a relatively young place compared to other metropolitan areas. Worker composition, most of the workers in Brookhaven work in high wage industries like professional, scientific, or tech, or finance and insurance. Income, you know, again, I don't need to tell you guys this, but Brookhaven has significantly more wealthier households than the region does as a whole. Now, the way this breaks out, here's sort of a dissimilarity look at how race and ethnicities incomes compared to white incomes. So what we're looking at is household income as a percent of white household income. And you'll see, obviously, the white, both in Brookhaven and the region, is at 100%. If you look at Asian household income, it's about 80% in Brookhaven of white income. If you look at Black incomes, it's about 50% of your typical white household income. And then you look at Hispanic, and that's about 40% of your typical white household income. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that household incomes are larger in general in Brookhaven. So there's that is at play here, but you do see that the gaps between Black and white, Hispanic and white, and even Asian and white in Brookhaven are larger than those in Metro Atlanta as a whole. Now, we also have data about commuting patterns. I'm going to go through this very quick. This shows you where your workforce is coming from. It's mostly from the South and the Northeast. We're also can show you where your residents are commuting to. It's mostly downtown and midtown. You'll see that Southwest. Overall, you have pretty good balance. You have more people commuting into Brookhaven than leaving Brookhaven for work. But it strikes a relatively good balance, but that does mean that your daytime population swells a little bit, which does have some impact on the services that you provide. Now, education, and I'm going to linger here for just a second, and then I'm going to close this up, because Brookhaven, there's a bunch of big differences in Brookhaven compared to Metro Atlanta here. First of all, if you look at public school enrollment and private school enrollment, about 1 in 4 kids in Brookhaven attend private schools. And that's, you know, more than double the percentage in Metro Atlanta as a whole. So that's, you know, immediately that should ground you in something that, you know, public schools are not being utilized at the same rate in Brookhaven as they are in Metro Atlanta as a whole. This is a very complicated, busy slide, and you know, I could linger on this forever and ever and ever, but really all I'm trying to look at is look at the race and ethnicity where the bowling ball in the snake is. In other words, do you have a higher concentration of Asian kids in high school, right? So there's that's the beach ball in the snake is for Asian kids is in the high school and college levels. Same basic story for the Black residents. You know, higher concentration of Black kids in high school and college. Now that story completely flips when you're looking at white and Hispanic enrollment. You'll see that the beach ball here is in the elementary schools, and that's going to have big ramifications as they start matriculating through middle school, through high school, and then finally into college. And that's probably when, you know, some of these decisions about whether to stay in public schools or send your kids to private school, that's probably when that's going to become more urgent. Higher ed, you know, we see the same gaps in Brookhaven as we see in Metro Atlanta, just by the percent of those with at least a bachelor's degree. And then here's some maps just kind of showing you the distribution of learning, right? So you have third grade reading proficiency by school. Here we're showing you where the poverty rates are highest. And, you know, you'll see the overall pattern is that, you know, typically schools located in high poverty neighborhoods typically struggle more, and that's the case in Brookhaven as well. Here are the schools that I sort of highlighted, very different schools. You have Woodward High School, Woodward Elementary School, which is 97% Hispanic. You have Montclair, which is 92% Hispanic, which is a very different kind of enrollment than Montgomery and Ashford Park. And then finally, and I'm going to stop here, because this is something that in the education space, at least, this is one of the biggest challenges that our educational professionals is grappling with. And that's really just kind of equity of learning. And this is a complicated chart. I grabbed this straight from, this is something that Neighborhood Nexus built, but I grabbed it off the Learn for Life dashboard. So you can play on this dashboard yourself. Just go to Learn for Life and go to data and you'll get it. What this is showing you is showing you a bunch of things. It's showing you third grade reading proficiency by school. That's this horizontal axis. So you'll see that 90% level. That means 90% of kids are proficient or above in third grade reading. And then down here is share of students. And I pull out Ashford Park because what you'll see is some of the biggest gaps in all of DeKalb County. And here we're just looking at DeKalb County schools. So you'll see the dots in green, those are the kids that are not economically disadvantaged. And you'll see Ashford Park, about 80% of students in Ashford Park are not economically disadvantaged, and they are knocking it out of the park when it comes to third grade reading proficiency. About 80% of those kids are reading proficient and above, some of the highest rates in all of DeKalb County. The red dots represent kids who are classified as economically disadvantaged. And you'll see how those two lines diverge, right? It's kind of a scissors chart. That's the state of the world. But you'll see in Ashford Park, where about 22% of the kids are considered to be economically disadvantaged. They have some of the poorest outcomes on third grade reading in all of DeKalb. And I'm not here to pick on Ashford Park, just here to highlight some disparities. And these are common disparities. And you'll see most of the green dots on this chart are up, which means that most of the kids who are not economically disadvantaged are doing fine in third grade reading. And most of the red dots are down below on kind of the bottom of the chart, which means that they're struggling more. And that's just the way of the world. And that's something that, you know, if we're thinking about social justice and we're thinking about issues of race and equity, this is something we have to acknowledge, and we have to fight through this. And then finally, we have some crime data. Overall, crime is not a big issue in Brookhaven compared to some of your neighbors in the region. But That being said, you have seen more calls for police in 2019 than you did in 2018. And you also have seen more arrests in 2019 than you saw in 2018. And then housing, I'm going to kind of blow through this and get down to the very last slide, which just kind of shows you the cost burden. And so these are families that are struggling with housing cost. And if you're struggling with housing cost, you're struggling with everything else. So the way that we define cost burden is if you're spending more than 30% of your income on housing costs, you're likely struggling to pay for other things. And so here's how that looks. I'm not going to go through each and every little bar, but you'll see, lots of cost burden renters in Brookhaven at the 20 to 50,000 range. You don't have a lot of cost burden in the ownership realm. So it's really kind of focused really in this 20 to 50,000 income bracket. Those renters are struggling. And so I'm going to stop there. And I know I took too much time. I just wanted to kind of ground you in all this data. Leslie, do you want me to just turn it back to you for questions if we have any time?
I think I've been looking in the chat and it doesn't look like there are any burning questions. So I think what I would just do is encourage folks to look at this. We'll discuss it a little in the smaller groups. And I know that Chairman Funny is going to also add to this data by sharing with everyone what they said and felt in the survey before we go into breakout. So I think that's it, Mike. Thank you so much.
Okay, absolutely, guys. Sorry that I took too long, but I always have lots to say.
Good stuff.
That was good stuff. Really good information.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. Let's see. Can I share here? Yes, I can. There we go. Can you see my screen, everyone? Okay. Well, I'm going to go through pretty quickly because I really want everyone to get to your breakout session and have a discussion on Michael's presentation, as well as the response to the survey that we asked everyone to complete. So let me jump right into it. Here we go. This question, it really speaks to your race, so it's pretty straightforward. We have a diverse group with members who are first generation to the US to third generation. So this is really good to have a great mix so that we could then dive into some of the areas we need to address as relates to social justice, race, equity, and race and equity. Again, we really have a good mix of first generation as well as third generation. So it's a good mix. We could have been a little more heavy on the second, but it's okay. We have representation, which is good. The next one said, how long have you lived in Brookhaven? We have about 64% of us who've lived in Brookhaven for more than 6 years. So 64% of us have lived in Brookhaven more than 3 years. The next one talks about, did I jump a slide? No, okay, Q10. One quick second here. Okay. This one speaks to, have you personally experienced what you consider to be racism and or inequity based on race in Brookhaven? So we have about 32% says yes, and then about 65, 68% says no. And then it says, have you witnessed what you consider to be instances of racism? You have about 58% here responding yes, that we've witnessed instances of racism and or inequity in Brookhaven. And the interesting thing here, I'm gonna flip back to this one here. This one here, 33% have personally experienced instances of racism. In this one, it says 58% have witnessed the instances of racism or inequity in Brookhaven. There appear to be a high confidence that Brookhaven officials and staff are open and cognizant of issues of social justice, race, and equity. So we got about a 53% plus here. However, there seems to be a great opportunity for the public to know and understand more about how staff and officials view these issues, because we have about 33% that say you were unsure. So I think this is an opportunity for education, as we have 33% stating that they were unsure. On the openness of your Brookhaven neighbors to discuss and address issues of social justice, race, and equity, there is a disbelief or ignorance. At least 20% do not believe it, and 32% are unsure. So that's 52%. So again, there could be an opportunity here for education to basically deal with that large sector, 52%, based on everything that's happening in society. That's a big number. Then we ask, to what point did recent events influence us greatly? And we ask on two different cases. One dealing with George Floyd televised murder. That's like at 98%. So that did influence things that happened, or the way you felt and thought about things that recently happened as far as our recent events. And then the other one is COVID misappropriated impact. So that one is about, again, 85% had some, was influenced greatly by the COVID impact. We ask you to weigh in on several value statements to better understand your perspective and to begin to craft a common approach to our work. Here's where we are almost all of one mind. This is where we sort of like started thinking alike, and we begin to see this in the responses. And we asked the question about all children having equal opportunity regardless of race. And everybody strongly agrees. I mean, overwhelmingly, over 90%. And then we had a few people that agree. So, but there were no disagreement. There weren't any unsure or strongly disagree. So that was a great thing. And then we have the question about failure to address racist policies will continue to drive racial and social equity. Again, people strongly agree with that response. Oh, okay. The question about Brookhaven being a part of a larger social justice movement in the region, that was, everyone strongly agreed with that Brookhaven should be a part of a larger social justice movement in the region. Everyone agree or strongly agree that diversity of all types strengthen our work. That's a great thing. The next one, however, we vary greatly on other issues. For example, while 70% of us feel that we must construct systems to eradicate racism, 16% disagree and 12% are unsure. And while 67% feel align social justice and it should be grounded and focused on race, 67% agree with that. We had 20% that disagree and 12% unsure. Interesting. It's interesting. I think you're going to get into your discussions in your groups to further elaborate on that, on these findings, but it's interesting to see that we have some disagreement as well as some people that are unsure. And finally, the question of if the architects, a word submit to connotation of the commission's work, should be those more affected. So basically, should the architects be a part of the commission work? 24% agree, 37% disagree, and 16% are unsure. These are differences we want to keep in mind as we go into our discussion, because this means something, and we would love to hear from those individuals that disagree. Although only half of us have received formal education on issues of social justice, race, and equity, all of us feel that we have a basic understanding of the concept, right? However, 30% of us do not advance or use race, social justice, or equity in our professional and personal lives. So it's interesting that half of us have received education, but all of us feel we have a basic understanding of it, even though we don't use matters relating to social justice, race, and equity. Almost unanimously, we are comfortable hearing and talking about the issue. So that's like 95%. So that's great, because that means we have the right group here to deal with this, the areas we will be addressing in the commission. And then finally, I want to thank you for indicating the subcommittees that you would like to participate on. So those will be reviewed in the coming weeks, and then we will be making assignments over the next couple of weeks. And we will review the data and develop recommendations for the subcommittees also over the next 2 months. I said 2 weeks, next 2 months. Leslie gonna kill me if I said the next 2 weeks. I meant 2 months. All right. So that just gives you a snapshot of the survey responses. But as you go into your breakout, you have an opportunity to dive a little deeper and elaborate on some of the responses and the overwhelming responses from individuals. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Leslie.
Actually, Kim is going to take us into.
So good evening. So we're going to quickly move into breakouts. My colleagues and I from Chrysalis Lab will facilitate 4 breakout groups. We're going to go into breakouts until 8:45. And so we're going to go soon as we can be sent to breakouts, we'll go there. And then we'll come back and we'll do 1-minute report outs orally, and then we'll share notes from our breakout groups via email. Okay. So I guess, Jalissa, you'll do the magic of sending us to breakouts. During our breakouts, we'll get to introduce ourselves, and then we're going to really ask you to reflect on the discussions and presentations by both John and Michael. And we'll go from there and bring back some notes and ideas. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna put you guys in breakout rooms, and Chrysalis Lab people, I'm gonna assign them everybody kind of automatically, and then I'll move you guys to your respective breakout room manually. So give me a second, we'll set to do this.
Wow, I think we've got everyone. That's all 9.
Do you know how to, I'm not seeing the option to like keep them open for like a certain amount of time. I'll just keep clicking to keep them open.
Okay, I don't know if there's any way I can help. I know there's no way I can help. Let me just.
I tried this with my teammates, but it's so different to do it in a group this big.
And live is tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it somehow I ended up out of the breakout room, and I'm here with you, Leslie. I don't. Is everybody's breakout over?
It's sorry guys. I think it's like relocating everybody. I'm gonna try to fix this.
Well, Jalissa says if everybody's back, this is gonna be tough, y'all. But
I think everybody's still in their rooms. I'm just seeing the setting too. Okay. I think I got it.
all right, here we go.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Sorry about that, everyone.
No problem. Thank you.
We're getting different room assignments now.
Jalissa, mine worked. I just didn't join.
Okay.
You did it right. I just didn't join it.
I'm just trying to make sure everybody's like, we have one person from Chrysalis Lab in each.
I know it's stressful to do the breakouts.
Yeah, I'm looking everybody around and I'm just like hoping we have what we need.
Well, I think you're doing a great job.
Thanks. Okay, so actually, I think I need to move Leslie to room 2, and then I'll broadcast the message to all. Okay. So yeah, this was my first time doing this, so slightly stressful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is it I imagine it's the thing of the once you do it once and get the hang of it, it's probably.
Yeah, I think so, but you know. I tried it earlier this week with the comms team, but I mean, it's like 3 of us in the team. So it's so different than doing it, you know, with upwards of like almost 40 people.
Yeah.
I sent out the prompt to everybody. So hopefully it got to everybody.
Oh yeah, I can see it at the top.
Awesome.
Hey, Jaleesa, can you put me in breakout room 3, I guess?
Yeah, I can put you in there right now.
Okay, great. sorry, Jaleesa. I was in room 2.
That's okay. That's on me. It's been a little bit of a mess. I'll move you there now.
Jalissa, this is till 8:45, right?
Yes, but I'm looking at the timer and it says like there's only 8 minutes left in the breakout room. So I.
Who knows? Okay, I'm gonna quickly make my dinner in 8 minutes, I guess.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, Jalissa, when I was in room 2 for a second, it sounded like that was about the right amount of time, but that could have just been the feedback from the room I was in briefly.
Okay. Yeah, this is hopefully next time we do this, it'll be much smoother. But you know, when you first try it, you know, who knows what can happen.
Definitely.
I think also that Mindy's really good at this behind the scenes stuff, tech stuff.
Mhm.
So maybe next time she could help you do it, like
Yeah.
as you're doing it in the back end.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I just need to practice like 1 or 2 more times so that, you know, before the next time we do this so that it can go smoothly.
If you need me to be part of a test group, Jalissa, just let me know.
Okay, sounds good. I'll keep that in mind.
Be careful what you volunteer for.
All right, everybody will join us back here in the main session in just like 20 seconds.
Okay, good job. You're doing awesome.
Thanks. Oh, actually, I found a way to keep them open for a little bit longer, so I'll give them exactly till 8:40. Oh, no, I don't know. I don't know what I really did. Says 112 seconds left.
That's very specific.
Yeah, right. Why is it saying this? Sorry guys, having a little bit of technical issues here.
Looks like we're all back.
Yes.
And Jalissa, take a deep breath. Really, take a deep breath. I mean, we're doing what we can. We'll practice over this next month and have it better.
This is technology. So
Exactly.
welcome to the real
Exactly.
world. But I
Exactly.
appreciate
I was
everyone being
hoping-
patient with us as we work through this.
Yeah.
We're looking to use this as efficiently as possible. So this is our first test. So I appreciate everyone patient. Thank you.
So if Kim is back, I think she's going to lead us in with the full group discussion.
This says 26 of us back. So there's some people.
Okay, so we still have some missing. Okay, looks like they're coming.
Leslie, I hope you captured those words that we had in our group. They
were great words. They were really great words.
Yeah. Well, wow. We got to find a thread to thread it all together.
I know. I wish there was we could do a word cloud even, because I wonder how many of them were expressed in the other groups, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully everyone took good notes to be able to do that. So we're at 27. So I do think that folks are allowed to not leave the breakout room. And so some people may be rebelling on us, and that's good. If the conversation is good, we want them to have it. Okay, looks like we're back now.
They're coming back, yes.
We're back with extra people, in fact. I love it. I just gotta love this.
I am so sorry. I'll have to call James because I couldn't.
No, you don't. I'm back again.
What, you in the conversation?
Playing musical chairs with me. Hey, Stephen, I just wanted to say, with the policy about going forward, whether it should be based on race, I was one of the ones who disagreed with that because of my background. When I started out with the U.S. military in my federal career overseas. So you see, it was a community where it didn't matter what color you were or what ethnic background or religious background you were. Our motto was one team, one fight. And that's how we lived our daily life. Was if somebody needed something, it didn't matter. As long as they needed something, our job was there to make sure they had what they need to do their job. And, you know, I've always been a little bit that way because of the simple fact that's how I started my life, and that's how I've continued my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I have a different perspective on how policies should be made, because they should be made fairly for everybody across the board, period.
Thank you. Well, Leslie, do we still have time for a 3-minute or 3-word checkout, or are we going to just communicate via notes?
I think that if we can really do it, and we all promise to take 3 words, I'd just love to hear from folks in the large group setting. I may be a little optimistic, but try it, Ms. Anderson. Okay. You can do it.
Okay. Well, since you have the mic, do you want to share 3 words of highlights from your discussion?
Oh, we had great words. John and I were just talking about them, but essentially, I think that there was reflected from a few people that while the data was not surprising, it did lead to a sense of urgency, a sense of hope, and a desire, and I'm gonna blend a few of these words together, for understanding and transparency and humility. I'm gonna squeeze a 4th one in, and the ability to leverage, right, where we are and who we are in Brookhaven to do more and to do this work.
So you can see Leslie can't count, but anyway.
I told you we had some good words.
Mindy, do you want to share from a few comments, highlights from your group?
Sure. The first word I will choose will be education. That piece of Michael's presentation was something I think that really stuck in the minds of everyone. And there's a lot to unpack there because there's the racial component, there's the income component, there's a private versus public component. Second word I would say is, okay, this is not a word, this is a phrase, but I'll get it out faster than I would in one word. Desire, or I guess not knowing. And when I say not knowing, there's a sense that we don't really know if our neighbors are truly that open and aware of issues of race, social justice, and equity. And therefore it makes it uncomfortable or just unable to have that open dialogue. And then last word I will choose is race. I think folks were, if not surprised, I think, what was really emphasized was just how big of a factor race is in all of these different outcomes.
Thank you, Bendy. Stephen, you want to share from your group?
Sure. We had a tenacious, persistent bunch of folks in our group. We had a great conversation. I'll share a few thoughts and then just one thing that I noticed about the group as well. So everybody seemed very interested by just the age and race correlation from the very start of the presentation, and that trend going throughout some of the data points. A lot of interest around the future of the city, kind of younger people of color, enrollees in the school system, and kind of how that will potentially shift kind of the shifting face or the changing face of Brookhaven, I think one participant said. There's an interest in the educational outcomes, the gap in educational outcomes. And one of our members said, that one thing she brings to the table is to be comfortable with discomfort. That these conversations can be uncomfortable sometimes, and that's okay. But to press into that and to work together in this group setting. And one thing I just acknowledge about our group, incredible group of people, great variety of group of different backgrounds, as well as some great advocacy organizations in Brookhaven represented. So look forward to learning more and journeying with you.
Great. Well, I think what I'll share is probably in many respects repetitive of what was shared from the other groups. But one, I think our group reflected the diversity of the commission overall, and so it led to some rich conversation and observations. Clearly a lot of discussion about the education and also reflection on the education data in terms of their surveys and sort of aligning survey observation with the data was very interesting. Also feeling that how the education experience, in particular the drop in the numbers of diversity in the schools will impact diversity of experience within the schools, and also how the socioeconomic differences will ultimately impact diversity. Although Michael didn't have enough time to spend an in-depth discussion on housing, we did spend some time talking about that, particular observations in community around homelessness. And there were some observations, particularly from representatives from the police department, of why we were seeing in Brookhaven an increase in homelessness. And then what does that mean about the affordable housing challenges that the city's facing or will face, and also serving the homeless community was of note. Also, the data around the healthcare and the asthma and what that means about healthcare access and the racial differentiation of experiences as it relates to healthcare access. So those were some highlights of a very rich discussion that we had. So I just want to thank you all. And again, we will in the future have more time for breakouts and also time to get to know one another a little bit more. So thank you.
Thank you. So Chairman Funny, I believe we're turning it back over to you for the public comment.
Yes, I will now open it up for the public comment portion of the meeting that will last as maximum 30 minutes. I don't think we're going to have 30 minutes for the public comments. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes, thereby providing an opportunity for 10 speakers. If a speaker wishes to speak beyond the 30-minute time frame, he or she will be transferred to the speaker list for the next commission meeting. As a courtesy to others, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes or less. We don't want to rush anyone, but we do want everyone to be heard. And we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. At this time, I will open the floor for public comments. Jalissa, do we have anyone who's signed up?
No, we don't have anybody via email or Facebook from the public.
Or what about in Zoom?
On Zoom, we have a commissioner that would like to speak.
Okay. Yes, sir. Commissioner Alvarez.
And so I wanted to respond to James' comment before, only because although he said that he disagreed that looking through the social justice issues through a race lens is something he disagreed with, and he gave his reasons why. And while well-meaning, I do want to offer a rebuttal to that, only because I voted in stark contrast to that. I strongly agreed with that. And so, the thing is, taking, the kind of like the color blindness approach to social justice, I can see where you're coming from, but the issue with that is it's kind of misleading because people, it kind of takes away the way in which people exist, and it kind of robs their identity, their experience, their plight and strength. And so saying things under the guise of color blindness and, that we all should, ignore those kinds of things, you really can't address the racism and really in all its tentacled infrastructure, because you can't address what you aren't willing to see. And so it's important to really, when we talk about these subjects, to really look deeply into how race is embedded in all these critical functions. So that way, when policy is formed that serves all of us, it is something that is authentic and it's meaningful and it stretches across the board in a way that recognizes the unique challenges that people experience. And so that's why I think it's important that we have a lens of race when it comes to social justice, because it helps us develop the strategies for social justice in a more inclusive and equitable way. So that's the reason why I voted that I strongly agreed with that.
Okay, and I think this is great conversation. I really appreciate you, Commissioner Alvarez, sharing your thought. Much of what we're going to be talking about may have some differences of opinion, which is okay, because we want to hear from each person as we get into the subcommittee in the weeds with a lot of what we're going to be looking at in the upcoming year. We want to hear your opinion. We want to hear your opinion. And from each person expressing your opinion, from that, we should be able to extract how does it affect different angles of the mirror, because each of us going to look at a mirror differently. So I think over the upcoming year, it's good to have these dialogue and discussion. We can sometime agree to disagree. That's okay. But the main objective is to be able to have these honest discussion so that we can understand why we do what we do and why we think the way we think. So I appreciate Commissioner Moses giving us your opinion. That's great. And I can appreciate Commissioner Alvarez doing the public comment section as well. Any other public comments?
I'm double checking right now. We don't have anything from the public.
Okay. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. I was I joined at the beginning. I guess I'm part of the public because I'm not a I'm not a commissioner, but I just wanted to join.
I'm sorry. Can you give us your name and your address, please?
Sure. It's Nicholas Gregov, and I don't know if you guys can see me. I live in Brookhaven, and I think it was Davis. I think you said you're off Donaldson, so am I. So I got to get more involved in the community so I can finally meet you. But I joined at the beginning of the commission just to see what you guys are about, because I read an article about you guys on the AJC. I think they had an article about you guys, and it was really interesting. I just wanted to say that my wife and I moved here from California in late 2019. And I have to say the city that you guys have here, Brookhaven, is something really special. My wife and I moved here in late 2019, and we absolutely love it here. And we really enjoy the community. So I just wanted you guys to know that we do really appreciate the community input.
Okay. Thank you for your input, Mr. Nicholas, and thank you for joining us this evening.
No
You're
problem.
our first official public comment.
Thank you.
Commissioner Alvarez, you're recognized also, but you're one of us, Commissioner Alvarez. But he's truly our first public comment. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
And welcome to the city of Brookhaven. Any other public comments?
I don't see any in the email or on Facebook. If anybody in the public is on Zoom, please let us know. And if you want to put your public comment in. Going once, going twice, 3 times.
All right, public comment section is closed. I'm just excited about the discussion tonight. Just from going into the breakout room and having the discussion there, the excitement is there, the thought process is there. And I've had several inquiries from commissioners wanting to know, when are we going to get down to work? When are we going to get down to work? It's very important that we get the grounding first. And I think Leslie and her team, they're doing a great job of doing that. But I now realize that you guys can speak. And I'm very appreciative of that. I heard a lot tonight from what you discussed in your group. I'm excited about the background. I'm excited about the diversity amongst this group. I'm also excited about the professionals that we have working on this commission. So I just wanted to make certain that you're well aware of how appreciative I am for your involvement to this point. I'm looking forward to our February 18th meeting. That's our next commission meeting. Please expect to be receiving homework and videos from our meeting. Everything is going to be loaded on the website, so expect homework in the future. Also, the survey results will be loaded to the website as well. And there will be some additional resources provided to you on the website. Again, as we're looking to get grounded, we really want to make sure that you have a good framework and good foundation for us to move forward. So at this point, I'll bring up Leslie and she'll tell us what's next. Leslie?
Thank you, Chairman. So I just want to invite you guys, I'm going to reference that second homework assignment, which is about shifting your gaze. Can art amend history? I want you to take the next month and see, given the data and the discussions today, what kind of shifting you might do. It might be for someone who delivers your packages. It may be someone you run into in the grocery. I spend a lot of time in the groceries. It's one of my exciting outings now. You know, it may be on you as you pass a community center or park or place that you passed a million times. And now you're passing it, knowing a little bit more about who lives in Brookhaven, who goes to school in Brookhaven, where those young people might be moving to. What would it be like to shift your gaze? What would it be like to think about it in a new light and with the new data you have? I also want to encourage you to connect with one another and get to know one another. I think there's a buddy pair I see with James and Renee right now around talking through that. That was a great conversation started. And this is how you begin to kind of build those relationships. So we wanted to just end with a short and we believe just a very short 1 minute and just kind of fun and inspirational video for you to go into your Thursday evening and think about all the possibility, the hope before us that many of you express. So I was going to ask Jalissa to just pull up this video for us.
This is my city. Student chanting Black Lives Matter because it's true. This is my California, giving volume to the voices of trans women at the Women's March because woman means them too. This is my country. Catholic grandmother on bus, defending hijab wearing girl. Immigrant, learning a new language. Native remembers an old one, rarely spoken in this world. This is who we are, resistance nonstop, Black, bold, queer and unquiet, woman and wonder, white and woke, immigrant and American, rising up to the mountaintops. There's pain in the past of people lived, and it's far from pretty. But our hope intersects like the freeways of our cities to those who doubt the solidarity streaming from our throats. We say that a rising tide lifts all boats. You get a wave when one person rises up like a sun, but you get a movement when the brave rise up as one.
Thank you, Jalissa. And I'll turn it back over to you, Chairman Funny.
Thank you, Leslie, and thank you and your team for a great job. Jalissa, thank you very much. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to our next meeting, February 18th. And I appreciate commissioners that have reached out to me. If you have questions on anything or thought, feel free to give me a call or send me an email like you've been doing. That's great. And I'll definitely respond and communicate back with you. Is there anything else from the commission before I call for a motion for the adjournment? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion for the adjournment.
I so move.
Commissioner Funny?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Moses.
Commissioner, it's Christian.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Kristen. I saw Moses' mouth moving. Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to be shameless because, you know, to understand Brookhaven, you kind of have to engage the civic process. City council meetings are the second and fourth Tuesday of the month, and our next meeting is next Tuesday night. They're Zoom meetings, so if you've never participated or watched a city council meeting, it's not as engaging and as fun as these meetings are, but it is what we do. It's the sausage making in Brookhaven, so I invite you to join us next Tuesday night.
Thank you, Kristen. We appreciate that invite. Anything else before we adjourn? Any other announcement, anything? And I think this is a good opportunity also, if a commission have an announcement, you're welcome to share your announcement with us. Okay, hearing none, we have a motion to adjourn. Did we get a second? Commissioner?
I second it.
Oh, that's what you was doing. Okay, I was like, what is he doing? Okay. And it was second by Commissioner.
Actually,
Moses.
I was talking to myself.
I saw your mouth moving and I'm like, okay.
I'm
All
accused
right.
of that.
Thank you, thank you. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those who oppose will stay by yourself. Any opposers? All right, we'll adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Y'all have a great evening, and thank you for your time and your commitment. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Take care, everyone.